When you need a sequel to a groundbreaking, beloved, and popular movie, who do you enlist? The mastermind who gave us Meatballs 2, of course. He's the only one who can do justice to a sequel in the 80s. Hey, I'm not kidding. Meatballs 2 is kinda the best Meatballs movie. I'm serious. Fight me. When it came time for a Return of the Living Dead Part 2 to be a thing, producer Tom Fox figured that it didn't much matter what it was about, as long as it retained the same words in the title. So what he did was hire director Ken Wiederhorn and had him rework his unrelated zombie horror comedy script into one that could exist in the Return of the Living Dead universe. I mentioned in my review of Return of the Living Dead that I thought I'd seen that movie before, but I came to realize that it was most likely because this one is so similar. There was a particular part of my childhood where we didn't have cable, and the only movies I had access to were the 20 or so titles available at the local convenience store. So every other weekend after renting the old school clamshell WWF tapes they had, I would check out Return of the Living Dead Part 2. And I think I enjoyed repeated viewings of this one because the kid in it was my age, so I could identify. That connection is no longer appealing to me, and as such, Return of the Living Dead Part 2 is not a very compelling sequel to the original. Also, despite featuring zombies and brain eating, one could argue it's barely an R-rated horror movie. Early on, you realize things are amiss when James Karen and Tom Matthews show up. They're not playing the same characters from the first film, which would be impossible, but they're basically the same characters, which is irritating. Here they play low-energy grave robbers who don't trigger the Living Dead outbreak, but are certainly affected by it. No, this time the outbreak is caused by some kids who open up one of the poisonous barrels, this time having fallen off the back of a truck. They unleash another Tarman zombie, but the effects are nowhere near as good as the first film, and also they dispatch it in seconds, which also sucks. And with this being a horror comedy, or purporting to be a horror comedy, the rest of the zombies all come across like an improv group, all looking for bits of business to do in each scene they're featured in. It doesn't work. Anyway, a small group of survivors, including baby Bobby Briggs from Twin Peaks, band together to escape the zombie outbreak. Lots of things conspire to sink Return of the Living Dead Part 2. The comedy bits are lousy, first and foremost. Also, just doing the same thing with the two main characters yet again with no real changes or anything is lazy. It's not a tribute or an in-joke, it's lazy. Hell, you could just call it plagiarism, as some people in fact do. Even worse is that there's no resolution or payoff for the two main characters. They turn into zombies just like in the first film, and then they just exit the movie entirely. We never see them again. I think we're supposed to believe James Karen's character is dispatched in this scene featuring Skinner from the X-Files, but it's all done so poorly you have no idea if that's the actual case or not. For me, though, the make-or-break moment in the film is this scene where zombies are just going insane in a pet store. This is a movie where moments earlier, zombies are getting their fingers comically stepped on or are doing pratfalls into open graves, and now the monsters are just murdering defenseless caged animals. I know it seems like a stupid thing to get angry about in a horror movie, but this really rubbed me the wrong way, and I turned on this movie hard. I was close to giving it a mild recommendation just based on the fact that you probably want to watch this as a fan of the first film, out of sheer curiosity. But since I can't actually recommend it, I'll just say it's up to you if you're interested or not. For me, it's a pass, but luckily we're not all the same. There's not a lot out there for this movie in terms of modern behind-the-scenes stuff, so I went ahead and listened to the commentary track on the 2005 DVD, which features director Ken Wiederhorn and the guy who played the villainous kid Billy. The two are recorded separately and have been edited together into one track. Now, this was Billy's only movie, and he mostly spends time on his part of the commentary recapping the events that are happening on screen. Although interspersed, we do get some insight into what it's like being a kid on a movie set. The director, on the other hand, seems sad. He explains that this started life as a completely unrelated movie, and it sounds like he didn't want to be on set, didn't want to direct it, and didn't want to be making horror movies at all, as he's not even really a fan of them. Instead, he just got kind of stuck in the genre and thought a horror comedy would be his ticket out. I'll come back to that tidbit in a second. Elsewhere, away from this DVD's release, you can find a documentary called They Won't Stay Dead, a look at Return of the Living Dead Part 2. It's an extra feature on the standalone More Brains, A Return to the Living Dead DVD that's available at getmorebrains.com and was produced at the same time as that main documentary. This doesn't get nearly as in-depth or run anywhere close to as long, but it does feature a few new participants. I can easily sum it up like this. People who worked on both films don't care for Part 2 much at all, while those who only worked on the second film think it's great. However, it does seem like the director's disinterest in the project was felt on set, as some of the cast and crew were put off by his lack of passion for the film that they were all busting their asses trying to make. Now, one last note from the DVD commentary. There are two totally different audio tracks for this film. The theatrical and home video releases feature one score and collection of songs, while the 2005 DVD contains a completely different score and arrangement of songs. Wiederhorn starts going into some detail about why this is, but also doesn't seem to care that much either. I was fortunate enough to have the original soundtrack available to me, and it's okay. However, it does end the film with a fucking Monster Mash as credits roll, and my irritation at that seems to sum up my displeasure with the film as a whole. Going from a cool punk soundtrack in the first film to Monster fucking Mash says everything that needs to be said about the tone and quality of this sequel.
Then you can monster mash. Up to my brain.